Hi there, welcome to Plan to Protect with Melodie Bissell, the safest podcast on the internet. My name is Joshua Bissell, and I'm the editor of this weekly podcast, where we tackle topics around abuse prevention and vulnerable sector protection. This week, Melodie's addressing how we can maintain the momentum. Thank you so much for joining us. Please enjoy.
Thank you so much, Josh. Welcome back again to Plan to Protect with Melodie Bissell. We are so glad that you've joined us. That continues to demonstrate that you want to be serious about safety. You want to continue and build on the momentum that we gained as we spent a whole week together in our masterclass. Last week, as we started talking about maintaining the momentum, we spoke about the importance of assessing where you currently are at right now and taking the Plan to Protect manual and comparing those best practices, those policy and procedure statements that are found in the manual. And we recommended that you compare those to your own policies. There's many ways that you can establish policies for your organization. You may say, well, we already have policies. I know that so many of our clients have really put policies in place, have put procedures in place, and we have been encouraging you to do that for almost the last 25 years. But how often do you review those policies? How often does your board put Plan to Protect or abuse prevention and the protection of the vulnerable sector on the agenda of their board meetings? How often does your senior leadership say, time out, let's take a look at our policies and ensure that our policies and our procedures are best of class? So many of you have indicated that you are committed to safety. And I want to encourage you that one of the ways that you can demonstrate that you are committed to safeguarding the vulnerable sector within your organizations is by regularly looking at your policies and your procedures and ensuring they are up to date. Today, I'm going to go through 10 updates of policies that you should be looking at within your own documents. Please, I want to state again, I've said this many, many times, the Plan to Protect manual is not a policy. Just because you purchase the manual does not mean that you have a customized policy for your organization. So today in our podcast, I'm also going to speak to you about how you can make sure your policies are really stellar. If you've purchased the Plan to Protect manual, you can use the appendices that are in the manual and develop customized policies for your organization. We have developed the manual with that in mind. Will take you some time, but what we have done is we have actually compiled all of the policies and the procedures from the whole manual, and we have put those in appendices 2 of the manual. Use the download code that comes with each manual, and you will be able to download the Word documents for the policies. We've done many updates to the Plan to Protect manual. The manual was first written in 1996. We did a major update in the year 2000. We did another major update in 2007. And since we started the company and launched the company in 2007, we've continued to do updates and revisions to the manual. We are currently in the development and writing stage of the 4th major addition to the Plan to Protect manual. This manual, you will want to get it when it's published because it will include not only children and youth, a protection manual for children and youth, but it will also include a protection manual for vulnerable adults and individuals with disabilities. This is going to be such a great addition to the manual. So watch for news as we release that later this year. So go back to appendices number 2 of the manual, where we have compiled all the policy statements from the whole manual. You can put your customized policy and procedure handbook together using appendices number 2. If you find that a little bit overwhelming, I really recommend that you reach out to us. There's different ways that we can help you make sure your policies are up to date. We can do a policy gap analysis. Our team is ready to do that for you. We can provide you a report identifying some of the best practices we identified in your policy document. We will also identify any gaps, any threats, things that you should be really aware of and your board should be aware of that could put your organization at risk. Once you've done a policy gap analysis, then you can put your policies together either by using the manual or by attending one of our certification courses. The certification course that really focuses on policy development, updates, and administrating and leading Plan to Protect is our Administrator Leader Certification course. In that course, you will learn about insurance requirements, the different categories of abuse, commitment to protection, insurance standards, customizing policies and procedures, and updating your policies, procedures, reporting and responding to abuse, screening your volunteers and staff, and maintaining documentation. In that course, we will provide you a very strong, robust template that you will be able to use to customize your policies and procedures for your organization. It may be easier to use that up-to-date template from 2021 rather than trying to update your existing policies that may be very out of date. Recommend that you take that course. If you've already taken it in the past, come back, take Administrator Leader Level 2. You will once again get the template, but you will also get so much more content and information. If you still don't want to put in the time and work of developing and customizing your own policy, you may choose to reach out to us and have our policy department do that. We have a department within Plan to Protect, and all they do is policy review and gap analysis, reviewing policies submitted in the Administrator Leader Certification course, and customizing policies on behalf of organizations. In the last 3 or 4 years, we have customized over 250 policies. This is our expertise. This is what we do really, really well. So whatever way that you keep your policies up to date, we are here to support you. Remember, if you're a Plan to Protect member, you can reach out to us, call us, email us, get the most updated policy statements. We are here to help you stay on top of your safeguarding policies and procedures and providing you all the forms that you need. So I'm going to end this podcast with 10 policy statements. These are 10 policy statements that we have added in the last few years that we recommend that you include in your policies. So this is your homework assignment from this week, from this podcast, is take these 10 policy statements that I mentioned and go check out your own customized policies and see if you have these in place. Okay, ready? Number 1, the first one I want you to look at is look at your health and safety policies. What kind of conversation do you have in those policies and procedures for sanitization of toys, surfaces, and health and safety guidelines, especially in light of a pandemic? Really strongly recommend that you add or enhance your health and safety policies. The second policy I want you to look for is your drug and alcohol policy. These days, many people are on different types of drugs now. Some, like cannabis, is now legal, and it's not against the law, certainly in Canada and in some states, to be able to participate in cannabis and use cannabis. So go back and look at your policies and see what you have in place for drug and alcohol use and coming to program and serving if you're under the influence of any of those drugs or substances. The third policy I want you to look for is progressive steps of discipline. Just this week, I had the privilege of participating in a podcast for Faith Today. We were talking about fallen leaders. It's in the news. Even today, as I woke up, I read a heartbreaking open letter from Ravi Zacharias Ministries. One of the things that the board has said is how important it is to hold your leadership accountable. So I want to ask you, do you have in your policy and procedure statements for both staff and volunteers progressive steps of discipline? How you will give verbal warnings, written warnings, when you will suspend someone, and when you will let someone go because of the actions that they have done. Look at your policies and procedures. Do you have progressive steps of discipline? The next policy I want you to look for is a whistleblower policy. This is a policy that we wrote, and it's something that really every organization, church, school, daycare, sporting league, faith-based organizations, community agencies need to have in place. Do people feel safe in reporting any wrongdoing? Very important policy to have in place. And again, that was something that came out from some of the findings and investigations that were done where organizations found that there was abuse. Other policies that you should be looking for are policies for online engagement. We have provided under our COVID resources that we launched almost a year ago now when we started facing COVID-19 and online engagement. Have you updated your policies on online engagement and doing programs via Zoom and online engagement platforms? This is a policy that we have made available free of charge to anyone who needs that policy in place. We really want to protect the vulnerable sector as they are doing programming online. Policies around harassment. Look at your policies. Make sure they don't just focus on children's programming, but do your policies also address the whole issue of sexual harassment? I also want to encourage you to look at your policies to see if you have policies in place for home visits and home activities. This question came to me this past week when a client reached out to us and said, can our staff and volunteers visit minors within their home? So we were able to help that client think through policies that relate to home visits, transitioning back from COVID-19. Finally, the last two policy statements I want you to look for include prohibited activities. What activities do you want to prohibit your staff and volunteers from doing? Might be bungee jumping, might be free falls, it might be minors driving all-terrain vehicles, any form of harassment and discrimination and abuse. So clearly state in your policies that you are prohibiting these activities from taking place. Finally, the last thing I'd like you to look for in your policies and procedures is look to see how often the board should review and audit your policies. One of the things that we continue to learn from organizations where there has been abuse is they say we should have done a much better job of holding our staff and our volunteers accountable for their actions. We need to ask tough questions, hard questions. We need zero tolerance for any power differentials that bring about forms of abuse and harassment. So we would recommend a policy statement that would say on an annual basis, the policy will be audited and it will be updated at least every 2, 3, 4 years. Pick the term that seems reasonable. We would not recommend that you go out beyond 4 years because so much has changed in our society, even in the past year, 2 years. Okay, what I'd like to do now is just finish up this podcast today and review the 10 policy statements. So, those 10 policies that I want you to look for within your policies and procedures include progressive steps of discipline, transitioning back from COVID-19, online engagement, drug and alcohol use, harassment and discrimination, a whistleblower policy, health and safety policies and procedures, including how often surfaces need to be sanitized and toys need to be sanitized, home visits, prohibited activities, how often the board should review and audit your policies. So, maintain the momentum. Today we talked about policy and ensuring your policies are up to date. You don't have to do it alone. We are here to support you. We are here to help you. We look forward to connecting with you and having a conversation with you about your policies. Don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@plantoprotect.com. Next week, we will come back again and we'll talk about maintaining the momentum. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.